obvious sort of, they're religious forms, right? So it's kind of like, oh, I don't know that I want to do that. I want to develop more awareness in the world. I want to shed my suffering. I want to be more compassionate. I don't really need to do this bowing or this chanting stuff. But the chanting, if you look at cultures and religious traditions around the world, essentially all of them have some form of singing, chanting, wailing, and so what is it? Why is it that form has come to be so central to our practice? What is making chanting important? When I first came, I was very much focused on meditation. I was like suffering a lot from a sort of a manic kind of thing going on in college, existential. But I'd also had just sort of, call it epiphanies, some drug-induced, some just wandering in a field. Just these magnificent moments where I was like, wow, there's really a lot more to the world than I understood. How do I get that, right? How do I live in that more? And how do I get rid of this suffering? And so slowly got into meditation through really desperation and dove in deep and started to sort of, my mind started to really, hallucinate, I'll say, because I was meditating a lot, unguided, just sitting in a closet by myself meditating. And I would come out and be reasonable with people, but I was, and it was like, this is too much. And then one day saw a sign for the Zen Center, which at that time was right near Brown University in Providence. And I wandered over there and sat down. The teachers were like, drop the drama. This is really, it's not helping you. The demons, whatever that is. The demons use drama to drag you away. It's all metaphorical, I think, but anyway. So I really focused on meditation. I thought like bowing was, okay, we bow because we wear robes and there's a Zen master and stuff, and it's, it's selfless. Okay, we'll bow, that's probably good. And we chant, okay, we chant, and but slowly the chanting started to sort of sink in. At that time, and I don't know this is fact, but my memory is there were no English translations in the chants that we were doing on a daily basis. And so I didn't have to get wrapped up in any sort of, I don't want religion, I don't want to believe that my religion's better than yours. It was just sound, it was just this beautiful sound. Well, sort of when you're chanting, there's vibration. There's, sort of a vibration in your body, and your mind is just focused on the sound. And when I chant, I wake up in the morning and do the morning bell chant with a group that Nancy Hedgepeth has online, a wonderful sort of practice. And often my mouth starts watering, my eyes water a little bit. And it's what that is, it turns, I think, I don't know this as a doctor or a scientist, but I think that's my lymph system, the interstitium, as it's now called, sort of waking up, sort of coming to life. And so the chanting we do in the morning, after you do this bowing, which is a vigorous wake up, you do this chanting. And that's sort of centering in a different way. And it's very subtle what it does to your body. It turns out the interstitium, some scientists just 3 years ago, I think, presented a paper at Hopkins where it turns out that there is call it an organ, there is a system in your body that's now called the interstitium. And this is medically observed, that runs between and around every cell in your body. And it's these scientists discovered this with a microscope, like electromagnetic or whatever that's called, the really strong telescope. And they were trying to track hormones traveling through the body and trying to figure out how the hormones were traveling through the brain and through various parts of the body. And they discovered this system that actually contains more fluid. It's the vessels that wrap every cell are only about the size of them. They only can allow a molecule at a time to pass through them. And there's more fluid contained in this system than is contained in your blood system. So, and these scientists who presented this didn't say, see, Eastern religion had it right. There's this energy going through your body that, blah. They didn't do that at all. They just said, we don't know what to make of this. We're presenting it to you. They presented it to 300 researchers at the American, or the international, whatever, who they said, please go off and try and learn more about this and see how we can apply it to help people and advance medicine. And I, personally, I kind of believe that chanting sort of activates that and enlivens that. So your whole system is more alive and your whole system is more together. That's really not what we teach here. So actually, if just for a second, I'm going to grab the chanting book. We do very high, I shouldn't say we. The practice here, the teaching here, is very high class. And it's kind of hard to enter. So let me give you an example. This is the foreword to the chanting book, which is a completely beautiful document. Seung Sahn was incredibly simple and incredibly eloquent and incredibly clear. And he had this economical use of words. So this is the first paragraph, or part of the first paragraph. Chanting meditation means keeping a not moving mind and perceiving the sound of your own voice. Perceiving your voice means perceiving your true self or true nature. Then you and the sound are never separate, which means that you and the whole universe are never separate. It goes on, it continues to be amazing, but it's like, okay, that sounds great, but how do I get there? How do we do that? And Pema Chodron, the American nun in the Tibetan tradition, is a beautiful writer and speaker, and she wrote a book where she talks about preparing the ground. And our daily practice is both simply do it, simply cut the thinking, but it's also continual preparing of the ground. The 5 precepts: do not steal, do not lie, do not use alcohol or sex heedlessly, etc. This is preparing the ground, and sort of as you prepare the ground, as you practice, the kernel of our teaching, what that was just about, the one mind, the losing yourself, your little self, disappears. It's, sometimes Dennis Dermeyer likes to say it's like walking through mist. You're walking through mist, you don't even know you're getting wet. So it's really hard to stay motivated and to practice every day. It's a rigorous practice. And, these insights about we are all one, this universal substance, has been around a long time. John Donne was like, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. But, England at that time, and still, didn't have the tools. There was no system. There was no practice that really pointed directly at this truth and then disciplined it. And that's what's necessary. I mean, it's poets, artists, musicians, they have always seen, there have often been these epiphanies of oneness. It's in every religion's literature. But what religions, this isn't a religion, but what systems of practice will really cultivate it? This school has been kicking out Zen masters like, there's quite a few out there now. And that didn't come about because they're chasing some dream. It came about because they practice really hard. So the chanting is a big part of the practice. It's a really important part of the practice. One of the things that we don't talk a lot about beauty, because the Seung Sahn tells the story of the person sweeping the courtyard. A rock goes and it hits the bamboo, enlightenment, right? if you are the sound, you don't need anything special. Your mantra can be Coca-Cola. You can chant Coca-Cola. You don't have to chant, the supreme mantra, the utmost mantra. It doesn't matter as long as you're there. But to help people who aren't in the practice every day, who haven't really seen the fruits of the labor, the preparing of the ground, I like to talk a little bit about the beauty of these chants. They're not arbitrary. They're not Coca-Cola over and over. The morning bell chant is a completely magnificent chant. And in Korean, or in the language that it's chanted in our school, it's a beautiful piece of music. It's often chanted more sort of somber and solemn than maybe it should be. It rises and falls. It ends on a real, I don't want to say let's go get 'em, but it ends on a real, this is the day greeted message. So, and it surprises me sometimes. I heard a Zen master say that they had just sort of recently realized that the homage to the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, is a true devotional chant, like in every moment. And not because it's just you're clear with it, but actually the form brings out this. And it was a little surprising that they weren't, to me, that they weren't kind of focused on that a little bit. On the other hand, if you're pursuing some majestic emotion or some great compassion, it's you pursuing this thing. You're missing the point. And you have a feeling, whether it's an epiphany or a moment chanting, and you want to get it back, One time in college, I was sitting in my dorm room, and the phone rang. It was one of the dial-up rotary, really loud, and it was the most incredibly beautiful sound. And for a moment, I was like, do I answer the phone, or do I just keep this vibe going, And I really didn't, I didn't understand the difference between I and this moment. It was a beautiful moment, and it was very motivating to continue to meditate. But, I answered the phone, and I would kind of, part of me was kind of trailing behind that motion. Don't go away, don't go away, don't go, So it's really, you practice, you get wet, and this little I starts to drop. It just starts to drop, and it happens on its own if you practice. So in the practice, we've got these formal forms which have a magic to them, have a purpose to them, but it is about, we hear it all the time, it is about every moment of every day. It doesn't help to meditate in the morning, then go off and be an idiot all day. So, well, it might help a little bit, but it doesn't really, it's not really the point. So, Bobby said once, that I think she was sort of quoting Satsunim, but she said, this practice, whether, you get the koans right or not, the kogans right or not, you practice and you will become more altruistic. You will find that me first goes away. It just starts to go away. It's just a beautiful thing about the practice. So, I urge you all to, practice and see if your little self will go away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions? I'd like to, the man of questions, okay.
Silence would be So, thank you for your talk, Mark. That was great. My question,
is related to, I guess, the ego and, you know, kind of being right or perceiving things as being right and getting attached to that. I know obviously this practice definitely helps with that, and I can speak from experience with it. But then there's, I guess, what you could call like relapses where, you know, you get back into that pattern of, well, no, but when I think about it, you know, I am right, or, you know, like, and you like start clinging to it, and you know, intellectually, that that's not healthy or good for you, but it just keep kind of coming back to that, and it's like a default. So like, how do you get away from that default? Yeah, it grabs you. So like, how do you let go of that? Like with the practice, I know that obviously is the answer ultimately for me. But expand a little bit further.
So yeah, you're right. Practice is what does that. But I remember Zen Master saying that once you start, we all like to make our ego smaller, but once you start thinking on it, like I want to try to, then actually make it larger. So you can't put your mind on it, but what you do is you just practice, and so that has a lot to do what Mark was saying in terms of bowing. So I think all the practices, all the religions, and even when I say religions, I also talk about the spiritual things that the American Indians and Native Africans and the South Americans, they do this. Those are all spiritual practices, and we shouldn't put them down. That's a very important point. But all of them have some kind of way of dealing with the ego. One of the easiest ways to dealing with the ego is what? Bowing. So if you can't actually put your forehead to the floor, and because you've got, and it reminds me of some cartoon I was looking at, a superhero cartoon, in which the superhero declared, "I never bowed to any man." I always hear that, and it's kind of funny. But you've got to be able to put your forehead to the floor. I say that in our practice to do that as a way of dealing with the ego. And in Korean, they call that hashim, or they say low mind. So that when you come even when you come into the Dharma room, you bow to the Buddha. So when the king comes into the Dharma room, he bows to the Buddha, and so does everybody else. Everybody else comes in, and it's like the same thing along that line. So that's a very important point. But it's not the only point about bowing. As you know, we get up and we do 108 bows. So you do 108 bows because when you're bowing like that, you also just let go and do the bowing. So that's letting go of all of that, what we're talking about, the ego and all of that is let go. But of course we don't focus on the ego, we just do the bowing. Okay, so you get up in the morning and sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're sad, and or you have some kind of state of mind. And then for me, sometimes I have a lot of, I guess, nightmarish dreams. When I get up, sometimes can be pretty angry. And so then, you know, you get up in the morning and you're a little bit pissed. You don't know at what. And so, you know, you start having your breakfast and stuff like that. And before you know it, you hook up that anger with something at work or somebody like that. And so you go to work and somebody says, good morning, you say, what's so good about it? And then automatically you say, I don't really want to have any dealings to do with that person for the rest of the day. And so we've all been in that situation. But the thing about bowing, when you get up and you do 108 bows, and you do it each day, okay, that mind that had that anger actually then goes away. Why? Because the reason why that mind followed you from the morning right into your job is because you dwelled on it. You kept on referring back to it. But when you're bowing and you're doing that bowing, so this is, you know, you have the hashim and all of that other stuff, but bowing has also a physical thing, a practical side to it, that when you do that 108 bows, that during that time you're just bowing and you have your mind on, like for me, there are two things. I'll have my attention in my stomach, Sometimes I'll just have my attention on touching the floor and so forth and so on. So that's that. So when you do that, and by the time you finish that 108 bows, you've forgotten about that anger or that whatever mind you had when you woke up, and poof, it's gone. It's very simple because it didn't have any basis on anything. It was a dream that you had, some kind of thing that you had there. So, and that it isn't, and suppose it is some knucklehead got you angry the day before, and you woke up and you were angry. That's also the same thing about our practice. When we practice and we begin to understand our anger, it's not to say that you're not going to get angry, but you understand, you have attained that anger, that the more you dwell on it, the bigger it's going to get. So why should you sit there and start fantasizing about how you're going to get back at somebody? It only makes that anger that much bigger. So basically, when you attain that point, it's like you get on this train, and the faster the train goes, the harder it is to stop before it hits that wall. So then you understand to get off that train, to try to get off that train. And how do you do that? Bowing is one of the greatest ways. When you're bowing, you just can't, and you're huffing it, especially if you're doing a lot of bows, you can't hold on to your anger like that. It's just like when somebody does a marathon. Somebody who finishes a marathon, that person cannot hold on to that anger, the kind of anger that it takes to say, to walk into a school or someplace to start shooting. They cannot hold on to the anger like that. It's just, it takes your thinking and dwelling to do that, on that anger, to have that kind of anger. So that's a kind of point about bowing. And so that's 2 points. First is the hashim, right? To lower your ego, to not have it be so strong. And then it has this part of not dwelling onto your emotions and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes you come home and somebody's done something with you at work that got you upset, and you come home and then what? You're going to sit and it's very hard sometimes to not have that upset mind, even though you know that it's not a good thing to dwell on, not to have that appear very strongly. So a good thing to do is to come home and do a set of bows, 108, and then after that, then some sitting, you'll find that your mind is automatically calmer. And so that's the second thing. The third thing that I like about bowing, and when I was in Korea, sometimes people will come up to me and say, oh, I think I want to move to Busan, but my mother's living in Seoul. I'm going to move away from her and my job, So they present me with all these kinds of issues. Should I leave school? Should I get married? Should I do this? And that's, Korean people sometimes, that's how they, in the old days, that's what all the people would do, is they'd go to the temple and they'd ask questions like that before therapy and all that started. Believe it or not, that is exactly what they do, and they'd have answers for them. And I'd have a great answer for them. I would say, I wouldn't answer that question, that's for sure. Then they come back and haunt me when it didn't work. So no, what I would do is I said, you go to the 3,000 bows, the Samchonbe. That's bowing all night. So when we first started that, we started at 7 o'clock, and then we'd end at around 3 in the morning. And when we go we start at 7 o'clock, we go for 50 minutes, 10-minute break, and then another 50 minutes, 10-minute break. When we do that up to about 10 minutes of 11, then we'd have a 40-minute break, and then we do it 3 or 4 more times. And I can tell you that after you did the first round of bowing, 50 minutes, right? You did the first round and you're there rested, and then you go into the second round, and you're 25 minutes into it. See if you can remember your friend's phone number. Probably not, probably not. And also you've got the rest of the evening to do bowing. A lot of people would bow up until 11 o'clock and they wouldn't come back. I would bow up to 11 o'clock and I'd go to my room and take a couple Advil and then I'd come back. and so, but then, the sweat's pouring off your body and all of that sort of stuff. And but the question that you had, the question like, should I do whatever it is that I wanted to do, it's just going around intellectually in your mind before that, and so you can't really get an answer. But if you do go and you do those bows, and you can't intellectually hold on to that, but you can only bow. You're huffing and puffing and bowing, and then at the end of the night, your mind is clear. You know, your mind is clear, and then you just go about your business. You know, and then maybe what will happen in a day or two, as you're walking around, boom, just like that, the answer to your question will appear. It'll just come out of nowhere. And it's very interesting how that does happen to me so many times, and I've suggested to other people, and I guarantee you, everybody in this room, that has happened to you at one time or another. The answer to your question just appears, and that's not from your intellect, that's from your intuitive mind, your don't know mind, your before thinking mind. And so this is what I tell people. I say, that's not your mother's answer, it's not your father's answer, it's not from the great being above's answer, that's your answer. That's really your answer. And it's a funny thing, the person right beside you could have the same question and get a different answer. It's a very interesting point, because that comes from your intuitive mind. It's quite an interesting thing. And it's very systematic, because if you do, you really do want to have some answer to some question like that. Go and do something where you're huffing and puffing, you're sweating, you know, running like that. And you might not get the answer right then and there, but something's working. And then when that finishes, poof, it'll present you the answer. Very interesting thing. Very systematic about it. But when you look at it, there's a kind of magic to it. So that's very interesting. So that is kind of like the whole thing about bowing. It's very important to remember. And the other thing is that when you practice Buddhism, Zen, you attain what practice is. You attain this before thinking mind, and then you get to do interesting things with it, because you know, that part of the thing is getting to this before thinking mind. Getting to this before thinking mind doesn't mean you have to do either bowing, chanting, sitting, and that. You can do other things, running, and just 100% be in there. How do you 100% be in there? Just by talking to the person in front of you. Because actually, in the bottom line, that's the end result of what all that practicing is about. It's just to be there, present and aware. That's the bottom line to the whole shamil. Because when you're present and aware and you're connected with the universe and everything, then you understand that you can help the earth, you can help the water, you can help the forest, you can help the people around you, you help your family. So that's kind of how that works. And you'll see how then in that process, you can help yourself, but when it gets into that desire mind kind of helping yourself, you'll see how it just runs you into trouble, or runs into hurting other people. It doesn't, this, how much money can I make? And then you look at all the stuff that these corporations are doing to the environment and so forth. It's all hooked up to greed, anger, and ignorance. And greed, anger, and ignorance has a karma. It has a karma that goes from generation to generation to generation, and you can see it. You can look in history and just see that. Having said that, does somebody have a question? And I was going to go into chanting.
Hi, my name is Josh. Nice to see everyone today. I sort of have two questions related to what you said. The first, so you talked a lot about anger. Is it the same if I'm bringing a lot of anxiety or fear about my life or the world, or like other emotions that aren't so tangible as anger? Is it the same kind of process, same kind of practice, and is bowing the same kind of tool for that?
Yeah. It's basically the same thing. All of your emotions, all of that, all has to do with thinking and what you want, all of that kind of stuff. And this stuff, this mind, you know, like when you think of I, when you think of things that you want and stuff, that's all about I. Okay, that's all about I. All of this, what you're saying, the fear, whatever it is, jealousy, whatever it is that you have, that's all about this I. But see, the thing about don't know this before thinking mind, it's not dependent on anything. It's not dependent on I. It's not dependent upon the physical surroundings. It's not dependent on anything. And when you pass away, you got no body, there's no I. Then what? Okay. So for me, I feel that it's very important to get familiar with this before thinking mind, this not I. And just do that. And when you do that, then you'll find that these other things disappear. The other thing for me was, and I still have it to a certain extent, but I used to be tremendously self-conscious. And that is something that I was, that I can't say that this practice did it or that practice did it, but as I practiced, it became less and less and less. So that's the kind of thing that happens as you practice. Everything don't happen overnight, but as you practice, you see that these things fall away.
Yeah, if you'll indulge one more question. Back on the anger thing, because that's probably where I relate to most, especially if you have something the day before and then you come to bows and you have this anger. It just kind of, for me, it lasts overnight. Sometimes it'll last days. And sometimes I bow and I get through 108 and then I'm angry at the bows. And I'm mad that I have to do that, and then I'm mad that it's over and nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So does that mean maybe I just need more bows? What's going on here? Thank you.
As Zen Master Seung Sahn would say, is more practice necessary, for sure. For sure, because I'm seeming to get an understanding a little bit about how what you're talking is that I had the kind of anger that you would have all day. Just all day, that kind of anger. And I've told the story a number of times here where I met my friend and he was angry about something all day, and then the next day I saw him, he was also angry all day, and then I went home. And this is after having practiced a while, and then I went back to see him, and I realized that way that he was angry the whole time is he learned that from me because he hung around me, and he picked that up from me. But now, for me to be angry, like how you're saying, with everything, all the constant anger, is that I would have to really concentrate on that. Because what you're saying is a habit that you picked up, a habit of being angry that you picked up. And there's a thing that's also a part of that, is that you'll find that when you begin to deal with that anger, and it isn't so much, you're going to find a lot of other stuff that's been hiding under that anger that you got to deal with. So that's a part of it. But for sure, it is more practicing bowing and stuff like that. And also you saying that you finished the bows and you say, oh, I'm still angry. But you're looking at that, you can see that. And when you can see that, you can then start moving in a direction to take care of it. So you're doing the right thing, but it does take more practice than that. And you say you're going to go up and do the month of Chik Che, so that's a kind of thing. I mean, that's what I did. I was very angry, so angry that when I'd walk into places, stores and stuff, that people would, I'd get angry at the people behind the counter. I didn't even know the person behind the counter. So I dropped everything and went to Korea and really looked at that anger and stuff like that, and I got a handle on it. And so the most important thing that you got to know about anger and your other emotions, okay, is it has no self-nature. Having no self-nature means that if you're going to sit there and dwell on it, well, as big as it is, you made it. As small as it isn't, then that's because you didn't dwell on it. It's not to say that you're not going to get angry, you're not going to have these things, but as you dwell on it, and then it grows and grows and grows, and that's it. so much in a nutshell. And it goes to what the Buddha said. The Buddha said, what did the Buddha say? He said, the reason why we suffer is because we're attached to I. What is your I? Your likes, your dislikes, your opinions, your ideas, all of these things that you say are yours, that's I. If you let that go, then you become unattached to it. Which is this, to me, is the epitome of all of this stuff, is becoming unattached. Unattached to this delusion that we all experience. And so I have a moment. Does somebody have another question? Oh, there we go.
So I also have two questions, but maybe there's only time for one. So what if I can't do 3,000 bows because then they would carry me out if you're in a stretcher, or, you know, somebody who can't even sit because they have an injury or something like that?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. And so those folks of you who physically can do those bows, you should start bowing right away. But yeah, like right now, I cannot do the 3,000 bows. I can do 108 bows in the morning, but I can see that there's going to come a time when I can't even do that. I already feel that with my body. So that's it, is that you have a body that can do bows, you should use it, because it is a very easy way to actually attain your true self, to get to this before thinking mind. And if you can't, then, you know, is sitting meditation, you got to sit in the chair. And then, I mean, I think sometimes it's people who what does they say, AD, you can't concentrate, what do they call it?
ADHD.
Yeah, and so I think they have a tremendous difficulty with attaining that true self, because their mind is always moving. And that's not who they are. You know, that's not who they are. But they got to get beyond that. So then, what do? You have sitting, and chanting is also very good. Chanting is that the Western people that don't have they underestimate the power of the chant, is what happens in the Western society. I've done 100 days chanting in Korea. I've seen nuns that will do it for 3 years every day, do a chanting retreat for 3 years. And they have chanting retreats that go 100 days in our tradition. And I've done that. And when I finished it, my teacher, Zen Master Daebong, said he's never seen me change more than when I did that. I love sitting, and that chanting happened it was in a cold church. It was in a place that didn't have any heat or anything, so I wasn't in a rush to do it again. But he said that was the biggest change that he'd ever seen me, is when I did those bows, and he always tried to get me to do it again. I mean, not bows, do that chanting. I did a chanting retreat for 100 days. So if you can't do bowing and other physical things, you can chant. And even if it's just like that, because it takes your attention, it takes your mind. So what you're doing is you're trying to bring your mind right into this moment. It's all about coming to this moment. Whatever can get you into this moment, that's the way to practice. That's the way to enter this before thinking mind, this not knowing mind, is by just simply being in this moment. So all the tricks of the trade that you can do, and Zen doesn't have it all. All these other traditions also have different ways. If you look at them, you can see how they do it. So, does that answer your question?
It does. So I'll just very quickly ask my other one. So, isn't it true that sometimes your emotions are actually useful because they're like giving you information that maybe an injustice is happening to someone or to you, and the same with other emotions?
Sure. That's some of the great changes in history for the benefit of other people start with anger. You know that, so you gotta be able to understand that. I mean, it's just know when it's open and when it's closed. So yeah, there's some people that say anger never did anything for anybody, but I've been angry and I've helped people with that anger, and and made a point. So yeah, I don't see that. To say that you should never be angry or you can't use your anger, but you've got to know the difference between, I mean, it's too extreme to say that, but between hurting somebody and helping somebody, okay? And if your anger can be used to help you change a social situation or a situation within the Zen Center, or whatever you think, if that can help you to do that, then that's fine. But the thing is, you got to understand that anger is also kind of a poison, and or it can become a poison if you don't know how to use it. Right? Yeah. So that's how that is. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here and listening.
Thank you for your talks. We just have a few announcements. Our next one-day retreat is with Zen Master Seung Sahn on July 12th. That's on a Saturday. And no experience is required to sit that retreat. We also have Chik Che Sa starting up on July 5th. And that is at the monastery. That's our 1-month summer retreat. You do need to sit at least one other retreat to enter Chik Che. There is a 3-day minimum, and every week is a different teacher. You can find more information online about that retreat and other retreats we have coming up. We also have our regular programming. If you are interested in trying chanting, for example, on Wednesday nights you can come starting at 6:30. And do special chanting and then regular chanting. We also have a free dinner on Wednesday nights. Another thing that we've got is we are looking for some volunteers to help with the upkeep of the Zen Center and some of the outdoor areas we've got. The weather is great, but things are growing very quickly, so if you have even a spare half hour here and there, to either help outside, weed a garden bed, or help inside, doing a little bit of cleaning, or anything that strikes your fancy, definitely you can sign up online, or you can talk to me or Danielle, who's in the back. Other than that, consider becoming a member or making a donation. We do depend on donations for a large part of our operating costs. And we hope to see you again soon at practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The gift shop will be open also.
I love the knowing game.